Okay, so yesterday we have covered these topics. So today, what we can do, we can complete a little bit about data model in Salesforce. Then after, we can go with Salesforce security model. So yesterday we need to cover data model as well, but because of these interaction and we have less time, so because of all these reasons, we haven't gone through data model. So today we'll go with data model. So before I joined, so Satish explaining about some sales process. I hope everyone able to understand what is sales process and what's happening with the sales process. Okay, so for example, we are having one of the business. The business may be like Samsung. Okay, Samsung having different types of products, and they are trying to sell it to the customers. So now what's happening, right? Whenever any of the customer trying to purchase any of the product from Samsung, so Samsung, they need to store the customer details. So each and every business generally what they are performing, right? They simply storing the customer details for each and every business, whatever the business it is, that may be retail industry or maybe like automobile or insurance and banking, whatever it is, they are storing data. So if you go for any of the application, that may be Salesforce or like some different SAP or maybe like .NET application or Java, whatever it is, what they're going to do, they are like simply play with data. So whatever the data they are having, how they are going to store in Salesforce, how they are going to store in database, and then how they are going to use it in their application. For example, as I mentioned, Samsung. So Samsung trying to sell their products. At the time, what happened? They simply place whatever the product they are having in their website. So if any of the customer trying to purchase, then simply Samsung collect customer details and then they can store in their database. For example, Samsung like one of the customer. Okay, so these customer one trying to purchase some Samsung mobile. Generally, what they need to store details like this. So the details is a customer name, and then so then after we are having one more field. So just give me one moment. How they're going to show the data? Customer name, and then so phone number. So then after the next one is address. So in these address, it may be having multiple subcomponents like street, house number, or maybe state, and then city, zip code, then after country. So we may be having multiple subcomponents. So then email. Some people they may be collecting so date of birth for the wishes purpose, and some people may be capturing few other details of the customer. So then after what they're going to store, so what product they purchase, like so we mentioned mobile, and then so mobile related details they are going to capture. So what type of mobile it is, and then the cost. So then after warranty period, and then so it may be having a few other details of the product they are going to store. So for example, one of the customer trying to purchase this product, like a product is basically mobile, and then simply they are going to store details like this. So maybe the customer name is Shrikant, and then so phone number is so and so, and then address, and then email, then after date of birth. So what type of mobile? It's like Galaxy, and then cost maybe some 3,000, and then warranty period 1 year. So like this, they are going to store in their database. Similar way, multiple customers, they are going to purchase a mobile. So maybe some other person, and then some random number. So ND, gmail.com. They may be having some different date of birth, and then they also purchase same product Galaxy with the same cost, and then 1 year. The warranty period is common for everyone, so that's why they are going to like a store similar details like this. So again, one more customer, they also trying to purchase same mobile, maybe like some Swapnil, and then his phone number, his address, his email ID, and then his date of birth. So same mobile with the same details, they are like simply purchasing. So these product may be like Samsung implemented millions of products they have implemented, and then they are trying to sell this product to the multiple customers. So here what happened, whenever they are trying to store these details, at that time they are going to follow in the pattern like this. Okay, so for this what happened, they simply create a table in their database. The database is basically storing our data. Okay, whatever the data we are having, they simply storing data in their database. So how they are going to store? So whatever the field names we are having, field name in the sense what is our property. Okay, the customer name, phone number, address, email, these all we called as in field names. So with these field names, they are going to create a table in their database and then simply capturing details in their database, simply storing data in their database. So here what happened, for all these customers, they're purchasing similar product, Galaxy, and then similar cost, and then 1 year. So if you observe here, right, what is a common thing here? Mobile. Same mobile, multiple people purchasing. So maybe like we are having 1 million people. 1 million people purchase these products. At the time, what happened? So 1 million records, 1 million customer names we are storing here along with the same details, along with these mobile same details. If you are like saving the same details like this, right? It may be having a duplicate data in our database. Okay, so here what happened? Same Galaxy and then like a same cost and then warranty period, we are going to give it to the all 1 million customers. So if you are like storing these details in multiple times means it's a wasting of our database memory. So in the case of like a similar product, right? Not only mobile, Samsung having different products, right? For each and every product, they are trying to store similar details to the all the customers. Like so if I'm purchasing Galaxy, so these Galaxy maybe like purchased by 1 million people, or maybe like some air conditioner may be purchased by like some 1 lakh people. For all those, right, duplicate data we are like simply storing in our database. So rather than storing like this, what this data model is doing, right? So simply it is trying to divide two different tables. Table in the sense how you are going to store your data in your database. So in database we call as a table, and in our Salesforce we called as a object. Object in the sense, so whatever the data we are going to store, that we called as an object. So now customer is one of the objects, and then so product we are going to store the another object is basically called as a product. Product is another object. So similar way, it may be having like some different types of data we need to store in our Salesforce. At the time, what we can do, we are going to create different objects here. Okay, so object in the sense we simply use it to store data. Okay, so whatever the objects we are, whatever the data we are going to create, based on the data, we can create multiple objects, and then we can store the data in our Salesforce database. So like here what happened, right? Salesforce by default providing few of the objects as in a by default Salesforce providing few of the objects, and then if you need, we can create our objects as well. So whatever the features provided by Salesforce, if you want, you can use existing features. So if you don't want existing features, you can create your own features in Salesforce. So by default, Salesforce providing few of the objects. Okay. So whatever the objects provided by Salesforce, we simply called as standard objects. Okay. Whatever the objects Salesforce by default provide, so those objects we called as standard objects. And then whatever the objects we can create, whatever the objects we are going to create, those objects we called as custom objects. So here object in the sense is nothing but a table. So it's nothing but like a database. We are going to store our data. We are going to store our data. So these standard objects and then custom objects, what it is basically. Standard object in the sense, whatever the objects by default Salesforce provided, so those objects we called as standard objects. And then, so whatever the objects we are going to create as a part of our project implementation, that we called as a custom objects. So how we are going to differentiate these standard objects and then custom objects? I simply go through these objects and then I will explain. So yesterday, I have specified, right? So once you are able to log in, we are having a setup button. We are having a setup button here. If you click on this setup button, then automatically it will open in a separate window like this. Okay. So here we are having a home and then object manager. We are having a home and then object manager. If you click on object manager, here you can identify all the objects, all the tables available in our Salesforce. So now simply I click on object manager. So here we are having a different object names available, account brand, activity. So all these are Salesforce objects. So if you observe here, right, some of the object names. So here, it is an object API name. So object API name that we are going to use it in our future purpose. I will explain like what is this API name. But as of now, what you remember? So here you can see object name and then type of object. So here you can able to identify it's in a standard object. Standard object in the sense whatever the object provided by Salesforce by default, that object we called as a standard object. And whatever the object we have created, that object we called as a custom object. So now here I have created one of the object batch. It is in a custom object. So if you able to like see here, right? So for the standard objects, there is no following notation here. So if you see here, right, buyer group or like a business brand or authorization form text. So here you can't see any following text. But in the case of custom object, we are having a notation called __C. For all the custom objects, if you are able to identify the name, so the name following __C. You can easily identify it is in a standard object or custom object with the help of name of the API name of the object. If you're able to see __C means that is a custom object. Okay. If you're not able to see __C, that means that is in a standard object. So what is this account and then why we need to use all these details? So generally, like in our customers, right? We already Satish mentioned to you like a B2B or like a B2C. We have like two types of business. So B2B in the sense like a business to business and B2C in the sense business to customer. So generally what we are going to do, right? Majority of our futures like a B2B. So here this B2B is basically it is going to store data like this. For example, like Samsung company, okay, provide 100 air conditioner to the some like hospital or some restaurant. Okay, restaurant or hotel. So Samsung company can provide like 100 air conditioner to the restaurant. So here, this restaurant is basically one of the customer to the Samsung. So restaurant also having a business and then Samsung also having a business. And So here they are trying to purchase these air conditioner as in a bulky. So here they are not purchasing an individual air conditioner. They are like simply placing in a deal. So here these Samsung, they can store these restaurant details as follows. So how they are going to store these details in our Salesforce database as follows. So here we are having an account. Account is basically the corresponding restaurant name. So whatever the customers are having to the Samsung, they simply called as an account. So here we are having an account object. Here we are having an account object. Within these object, we can store the details. I will navigate to the record, one of the sample record. So here, if you navigate to the like account side, we are having some sample records. Okay, I'm trying to open one of the account. If I open these account record, right, then simply they are capturing details like this. The corresponding customer details, they are capturing like this. So the corresponding account name, and then so they are having like their account number, and then account side, type of customer. So then after they are having an email, and then company number, company count. So they are having a different details available here. All these details we are storing under this account object. So Samsung may be having different types of customers. All those customer names, customer details, they are capturing under this account object. Okay. So whatever the details they are having, like how many employees working in that company, that means how many employees working in that restaurant. So then after what's the website of the restaurant, and then so the fax number, phone number, and then rating. So everything they are capturing under this account. So here we are capturing only company details. We are capturing only company details. So whatever the restaurant name, and then the corresponding restaurant details we are capturing under this account. So maybe like Samsung selling the same air conditioner to the some hospital, or maybe like some education institute, whatever it may be. So all the details we are capturing in this account. Okay. So if maybe the same Samsung selling air conditioner to the one of the education institute, the corresponding education details they are storing under this account object as a record. So if you're able to if you're able to like open these account object, right, we can see all the records of this account available here. If you go for like all accounts, then you can see multiple account records here. So these all are customer details to the Samsung company. So here, right, we are having one more option called contact. Contact is another object. So these contact, what they are going to store, whoever like working in that company, whoever working in that company. For example, in these restaurant, we may be having like a two people or three people mainly working here. So like one of the person point of contact, or maybe like a secondary point of contact. So these details we are storing under the contact object. What is this contact? For example, in these restaurant, in this restaurant, if I'm trying to sell these 100 ACs to this restaurant, we need to approach one of the person in the restaurant. We need to approach one of the person in this restaurant. If I'm like trying to approach these restaurant, I need one or two point of contacts. I need one or two point of contacts. So based on these contacts, I can communicate to the restaurant owner, or maybe like I can communicate to these people so that I can sell these 100 air conditioners. Okay, if I don't know anyone in this restaurant, if I'm having only restaurant details, I cannot sell these 100 air conditioners. If I know someone, then only I can sell these 100 air conditioner to the corresponding restaurant. So here in this account object, we are like simply storing restaurant details. Now, whoever like a primary contact or secondary contact under this restaurant, that we are going to capture as in a contacts. If you are able to see the contacts, right, you can simply click on a contact tab, and then you can get the corresponding details here. So if I'm navigating to the contact, or maybe like I can go to account. There is no contact under this account. So within this United Gas Corporation, it is having like a multiple contact persons. So those details we are capturing under this contact object. Tom Ripley, and then another person also there. So these details we are capturing as a contact. So we were like working in that company. We simply storing as a record in our contact object. So why we are storing in different places in sense. So for in a same restaurant, if I need to store both person details, then I need to create a data like this. So restaurant name, and then primary contact, and again restaurant name, again primary contact, like this we need to store the data. So rather than doing like this, what they are going to do, they simply divide data into two parts. One is restaurant details and another one is the corresponding contact person details. So for that purpose, they simply divide the related data into two different objects. One is account and another one is contact. So here you can get the corresponding person details, like who is the person name, and then person phone number, person email ID. So like this, whatever the details is required, they simply capturing here. So the purpose of dividing the objects is basically we are like storing same data in our object. It may be like having a duplicate, as well as it is simply increasing our database wastage. So that's why whatever the details we are going to capture based on our requirement, we are like simply dividing into multiple objects. So here we are like simply like selling our air conditioner to the restaurant. But the thing is, we are storing the details in two different places. In our accounts, we are storing our restaurant name, and then in contacts, we are storing who is working in that restaurant. Similar way, maybe like I'm having some different company, whatever the like education institute, whatever it may be, I'm simply storing the related education institute name in our account object, and then whoever working in that educational institute, we are simply storing in our contact object. And then so we are like keep on adding whatever the customers we are having, we simply adding in our account object. So here, right, within this account object, we are having fields like this: name, and then the corresponding parent account, account number, account site, type, industry. So how we are going to get these field values? For example, here I have like only these details, but I would like to store some another detail. I would like to store some another detail. At the time, what happened, right? We can create extra fields within this object. We can create extra field within this object. As of now, what happened? We are having some revenue as well as some company information available, but I would like to store some another fields. Maybe company establishment date, or maybe like company some SIC code, or maybe company related information I would like to store. But the corresponding field name is not available. The corresponding field name is not available. Then what we can do? We can go to the corresponding account object, and then we can add the fields. And then we can add the fields here. So if you would like to create the fields, then simply what we can do, go to the object manager. The navigation is basically object manager. And then where do you want to create a fields? Go to the corresponding object. Now I would like to create a field on our account object. So select on account object. Then after we are having like fields and relationships. Fields and relationships option is there. If you click on fields and relationship, then whatever the existing fields available, all are available here. All are available here. So if you see here, right, whatever the fields available, all these fields are available here. So email, employees, external ID, and each and every field available here. If you would like to add any new field, then simply click on new option. Simply click on new option, and then you can create the corresponding field, whatever the field you want. So I would like to store some name, or I would like to store the phone number, or I would like to store the address. So based on our requirement, we are having different types of options available here. We are having different types of options here available here. So ignore about all these things. So here we have like a URL. Do you want to store company website name, company website details? Then you can go to the URL. Do you want to store time? So then simply you can go to the time. So do you want to store some like text, like a name and all those things? Then you can go for the text. And do you want to store some address or like some description? Then you can go for text area, or like a text area rich, or like a text area long. Depending upon our like size, how much do you want to store? We can go to the any one of these options. And then we are having like a pick list in the sense. So here maybe I can go to the one of the option. If I go for like a drop down option like this, so if you would like to store your data like this, then you can go for these pick list option. And multi-select pick list, maybe like when you are like trying to fill any of the form, so you will get an option called languages known. So at the time, what we can do, we can select multiple languages. So do you want to select multiple languages? We can go for multi-pick list. Do you want to store phone number? We can select phone number. Do you want to store percentage values? Then you can go for percentage type. And then number, do you want to store number? Then you can go for like a number, and then geolocation, email, data type, date, currency, checkbox. So these all options available. So based on our requirement, what type of data we are going to store, based on that we can have multiple types of field types available. Based on our requirement, we can choose any one of these options. So now we go with some small exercise. I would like to store some student details. So what are the options available in these students? That means what are the fields, what type of data we can store about the student. So first we go with the name, and then any other fields, roll number,
department,
gender,
date of birth,
sorry, what is
address.
Okay, these address I'm dividing into multiple multiple subparts, like area, and then city. So then after state, and then zip code, then after country. Okay. Any other details?
Email ID.
Okay. Email ID.
Phone number.
Phone number.
Age.
Age.
Parents' names.
Yeah. Parent details. Father name and father phone number. Father phone number. Any other details about our student? Okay, first we go with maybe like these options, then later we can add few more. So now we got a requirement from one of the school. So they would like to store the details in Salesforce database. Maybe like one of the school, they gave a project to us, and then they ask us to store their student details and then their class details and everything in our Salesforce database. So for that, what we are like doing generally. So when we are like starting implementing, right? Then first of all, we need to identify. So what type of data we need to store, and then what are the objects we need to store. So here, student is one of the object. Under the student, we have like these many fields, these many property details we need to store. Similar way, we may be like having a few more objects called class. So the class details, who is going to take the class, and then the corresponding class timings, everything we can store into this class object. Similar way, teacher details, and then school details. So everything we need to store in our Salesforce. For each and everything, we can create as an object. So for class, we can create one of the object. Under this class, we have like the teacher name, and then so the timings. So subject. So then after like a section details. So all these things, all these field values, we are capturing under class. Similar way, teacher. So these teacher details, we need to store like a name and a subject, what he is going to teach. So then after like a teacher personal details, address, and all those things we can capture here. So similar way, school details we are capturing here. So now the thing is, if I would like to store these details, I would like to store these details. So if you're like simply giving in a plain form like this, plain form, if I'm trying to create a new account, how it is displaying. So it is basically displaying a account name and then a parent account number, account site. So then after type, industry. So and then we're having rating, phone number, fax, all these things. So few of the details we need to capture in text format. Few of the details we need to capture in phone number format. And then few of the details we need to capture in like number format. So here, if you go through these values, name, roll number, department, gender, date of birth, area, city. So if you go here, right, name is basically text. Name is basically text. We are going to enter alphabets here. So each and every person name contains only alphabets. So simply we can consider as a text. So no one name may be having special characters or like any of the numbers or like something. We simply storing the values as a text. The roll number, majority of the places, roll number may be like having only numbers. Maybe sometimes depending upon the school and their format, it may be combination of alphanumeric. It may be combination of alphanumeric, like some school and then some format like this. So 001 like this, depending upon the school instructions, they can follow some pattern. But generally, majority of the places, it may be like having only numbers. So consider we go with alphanumeric, then I can consider these roll number also text. So then after department. So in the case of like student department, we go with some ECA, like whatever it may be, it is in a fixed values. It is fixed values. So these departments are having fixed values. We are not allowing them to enter manually. So some people write, if you are not giving a fixed value, then what we can do? So some people may be like enter CSC, and some people may be like enter the same word computer science. Okay, some people may be like simply enter like only computers. Okay, so the department they can enter in different ways. Same department name, they can enter different ways. To avoid these consistency, what we can do, we can simply provide one drop down here, one drop down. So these drop down contains all the department values. Whatever the department we are having, we can simply specify here, and then they can choose the option. Okay, so if you are not providing these drop down, right, then automatically what happened? They simply enter whatever they want. If you are providing these kind of text, and then you need to ask them to enter department. So everyone having their own thoughts, and then they can enter different names. So rather than collecting different names, we are like simply providing drop down option. So if you are like providing drop down option, they can select one of the option from the drop down. Okay, so then we will get a constant data. So for the gender, we are having only 3 options. So for the 3 options also, we can enter like a drop down. So drop down in the sense, select option, date of birth. For the date of birth, what we can do? We can go with date. So area is basically text, and then city also text. So then after state is basically text. In the case of zip code is also alphanumeric in sense some places is basically only numbers, but if you go for UK, it's a combination of like a text as well as a number. So we go with alphanumeric in sense text. So country also, majority of the places we can identify as a drop down. Why? Because some people enter like United States, some people enter USA, some people enter US. In order to avoid these inconsistency, we can simply provide drop down here. So email ID, we need to capture as an email. So, and then phone number, phone property. So age always, what it is basically, it's a number or text. Age always, number, and a father name, some text, and then a father phone number, again phone number. So now they ask us to store student details in our Salesforce database. Then what we can do, we are like creating an object, the student object, and then our next step is basically we need to create a fields. We need to create a fields here. So the fields is basically depending upon our requirement, whatever the data type do you want to store, you can specify the related field, and then you can store the data. Okay, so here these drop down, okay, drop down in the sense we simply called as in a pick list. Okay, so in our general terminology we called as a drop down, but in our Salesforce we called as in a pick list. If you would like to create a drop down in the sense pick list. Okay, so here whatever the type of data do you want to store, based on our requirement, you can choose any one of these option. So now I would like to store text data, then I can create text field. If I would like to go with the phone number, then we are having in a phone number format. If I would like to store some percentage, so maybe these student having a percentage, right? Their marks percentage. Then we go with percentage data type. We go with percentage data type. And then number. So geolocation, sometimes might be like we need to capture the latitude and then longitude. At the time we go with this geolocation. So then after email, date and time. So sometimes we need to capture both date and time. At the time we can use these data type and then date. Then after currency, if you would like to store amount, maybe fee. If you would like to store fee, then we go with the currency type. Okay. And then we are having a checkbox. Checkbox in the sense true or false values. If you would like to store like true or false values, then we go with these option called checkbox. Okay. So these are the data types by default provided by Salesforce. What type of data do you want to store? You can simply go with like these fields. Okay. Is it clear? Are anyone having any questions so far?
It's clear.
Anyone having any questions so far? Okay. Just take a break. So we'll gather in 10 minutes. Then after we can create these objects in our Salesforce, and then how to store the data, how to create the records, we will discuss. Yeah. So similar way, like our objects, standard objects and then custom objects, we are having standard fields and then custom fields. We are having standard fields and then custom fields. If I open any of the account object, so under these account object, it may contain multiple fields. So generally what happened, right? These fields may not sufficient to our end user. So obviously end user, they are going to create multiple custom fields. But by default, these Salesforce provide some of the fields as in a standard fields under standard object. So again, standard fields in the sense, whatever the fields Salesforce by default provide, those fields we called as standard fields. If you see here, right, we are having multiple fields here, like a name and then account number, owner ID, account record type ID. All these are standard fields. So similar way, whatever the fields contains __ C, whatever the field API name contains __ C, that we called as custom field. So as per my requirement, I'm going to create one of the field, maybe phone number format or maybe some text format, whatever it is. So whenever field is created, by default __ C, that will append to your field name. By default __ C, that will append to your field name. So these kind of fields we called as custom fields. Okay. So if I open these account source ID or active or age, whatever it is. So if I open in our UI, you open it whenever trying to create a new record. Whenever I'm trying to create a new record, by default it is displaying as age only. So if I go for like type email or external ID, whatever it is, so by default we are getting only these values only. But if I go for like a field name contains __ C, age __ C. But the thing is, so here for these fields we are having two options, field label as well as a field name. So field label is basically what we are going to showcase in our UI. And then field name is basically what we are going to store in our data table. Okay, what we are going to store in our data table. So label is just for UI purpose, and then name is for backend purpose. If you go for like this active, right? Active is basically active, and the name is active __ C. So these active that is going to display in our UI. So active that is going to display in our UI. So active here simply displaying only active. There is no __ C. But when you are trying to store these details in database, at the time it is storing __ C. Okay, so how can you identify standard fields and custom fields in the sense? Simply with the help of these __ C extension, you can identify whether it is in a standard field or custom field. So now I would like to create one of the object student, and then whatever the data types we have specified here, whatever the fields we have specified here, I am going to create all these fields. So now I'm trying to create a new object. So whenever, if you would like to create a new object, simply click on setup, and then click on object manager. So if you click on object manager, you will get an option here. So create, and then create custom object. So you can select these first option. If you would like to create a new custom object, then what we can do, we can simply click on object manager and then create custom object. If we click on a custom object, then automatically it is navigating to the the corresponding creation screen. So here you can provide the label name. So similar way, like as our account, whatever the name do you want to create, you can specify the label here. So I am going to specify the name is student. Already student object is available. So I am simply modifying the name is student 33. Okay. So, and then the label. So in the case of student, what we called as students. So what is the floral label for our object? What is the floral label for our object? In the case of account, right? Well, generally what we're going to call, we called as accounts, contacts. Similar way for our student, what is the floral name? So I am going to specify students. And then, so here object name is by default student and student 33. So once you create, then automatically it is going to display as __ C. So here, do you want to change name? Do you want to change your object name? You can change it here. You can change it here. Okay. And then do you want to specify anything about this object? You can provide within this description. Then after we are having like a record name. So record name is a student name, and then type is basically we have two types, text and then auto number. So sometimes what happen, right? Whenever we are trying to create a record, then by default number should be automatically increase. So first record, second record, third record, fourth record, like this. So by default number should be automatically increase. So do you wanna create data like this? Then we go with auto number. So when we are like using this auto number, right? Then what happened? When you create a first record, then automatically whatever the format you have specified, by default the number will be displaying like this. For example, whenever account record is created, the student record is created, by default the number is basically our school name, some CAG -001, and then next student, whenever next student is created, by default the number should be like this. So similar way, how many like records you are going to create, automatically the number should be populating like this without manually populating these value. By default the number should be like automatically storing in our database like 1 2 3 like this. So if you would like to store automatic number, then we are having an option called auto number. So I don't want to go with auto number. I would like to go with only like a name, student name. Then I can specify text. But if I would like to go with auto number, then we are having an option called auto number. These auto number, and then whatever the format do you want to specify, you can simply specify like this. So here I'm going to specify display format 00 like 1. So then by default it is going to start from 1 onwards, starting number 1, and then whenever a new record is created, by default it is going to add name as CAG 001, and then for the second record CAG some like 002, like that whenever any record is created, by default, these number will be incrementing one by one. So maybe in between, if you delete any of the record, so it won't consider deleting records. Whatever the previous number, based on the previous number, automatically it is going to increase. Automatically it is going to increase. So as of now, I am simply providing like these options. So remaining options, we will discuss it later. So in our next classes, we are going to discuss these options. But as of now, what you can do, go with only these options: label, floral label, and then object name. So then after record name, like what type of format you want. So the corresponding format you need to specify here. So then after, simply select save option here. Simply select save option here. When we click on the save button, so generally what happened, right? When we click on save button, then object will be created in backend. Then object will create in backend. But if you would like to create records, if you would like to create record, for that, for creating of records, we need to create a tab for your object. We need to create a tab for your object. Tab in the sense, so if you open Salesforce account, by default you are getting an options like this: accounts, and then contacts, opportunities, home. All these options we called as tabs. All these options we called as tabs. If you would like to create any of the record, if you would like to create any of the record for any of the object, you need to create tab. You need to create tab for that. So now what happened? I have created a student object, but if I'm not creating tab, then like it is just simply available in backend. You cannot create any record. You cannot create any record. So if you would like to create a record in your object, then what you need to do, after creating your object, you need to create a tab for that. You need to create a tab for that. If you create a tab, then automatically the tab available here, then you can simply navigate to the tab and then you can create the records. So now I'm creating a tab. So I'm creating a tab. So for which object do you want to create tab? You can specify here. So I'm trying to create a tab for student 23. Then after tab style, you can specify anything here. It may be having multiple options. Here you can select any one of the option. Do you want to create your own style? You can select that option as well. So otherwise, if you want to go with any one of these options, simply I am choosing these options. Okay. So bell option I can choose. Then after, click on next. And by default on. So as of now, keep it as it is. Don't change anything. We'll discuss it these options in our next classes. And then click on next again. So don't change anything here. Again, click on save here. So now object creation and then tab creation completed. Object creation and then tab creation completed. So now you see here, right? Student 33 with this name, one of the object is created. So if you see here, right? By default, __ C, that is adding to our object name. And then whatever the fields available, that is available here. So whenever any of the custom object created, by default, these 4 standard fields available. These 4 standard fields available. So then after, whatever the fields do you want to create, you can create. So those fields we called as custom fields. Okay. So now simply I'm like trying to create one of the field and simply click on new. So now I would like to go with the student name. For that purpose, what I can do, text, and then click on next. So here I'm going to give name, student name, length. So how many characters do you want to specify? You can give the related limitation as well. So for example, student name should be 80 characters only or like 200 characters only. You can give the corresponding limit here. So I'm going to specify 200 characters. So then after, so if it is mandatory, you can enable this checkbox. If you enable this checkbox, right, whenever you are trying to create any of the record, you will get a validation like this. So now I'm trying to create a record. When I click on save, right, by default, account name and then these two fields are mandatory. These two fields are mandatory. Without populating values within these fields, you cannot save this record. You cannot save this record. So do you want to make any of the field is required? Then while creating field, we have an option called required checkbox. If you enable this checkbox, right, then by default, whenever you are creating a record, it will throw in an error message. And then next option is unique. So unique is basically whenever record is created and then with the same name you are going to create one more record, then it will throw in an exception. Then it will throw in an exception. So if you enable these unique option, right, again we are having two more options. One is case sensitive and another one is case insensitive. Case insensitive. So whenever trying to create like a capital letter and then small letter, do you want to compare? You go with the case sensitive, and if you would like to go with only any capital or like small is fine, then you go with the case insensitive. So depending upon our requirement, we can enable these options. I don't want like make it unique. I would like to create duplicate data. Then simply you can unselect these options. Okay. So for example, I'm trying to create a student name with Ravi, and again I'm trying to create one more record with the same name Ravi. If you are using these unique checkbox, then it will throw an error. Then it will throw an error. So if you would like to make it a unique, then you can enable this option. Otherwise, we can simply unselect these options. So all these are we need to configure. So once I'm like done with these options, then I can simply click on next and then select visible for all the options. Click on next and then finally save. So now one field is created under our student object, and then I am going to create one more field, maybe some department for the drop down, right? I am trying to create one more field. So if I would like to go with drop down, right, then what we need to choose it here? If I would like to create a drop down, then what we need to choose here?
Pick list.
So simply go with the pick list, click on next. I'm going to specify department. So here we are having two types of options available: is global pick list value, and another one is enter values with each value separated. So if I'm choosing a first option, right, then what happened? For example, the same department pick list field you may be used in multiple places. Okay, in student object and some other objects, do you wanna use the same department field? At the time, what we can do, we can create one of the field globally, and then you can use it in our student object. So generally, what happened, right? In the case of country field may be used in multiple objects. In student, school, teacher, and then multiple objects, we are going to use these country field. For those kind of fields, we can use global pick list, and remaining fields, like we can go with custom option. So as of now, I'm going with some custom option. So when we go with the country, at the time I will explain how to create a global pick list. So now simply I'm using an enter values. So here I can provide like a CSE, ECE. So whatever the options do you want display in your drop down, you can like enter all the values one by one like this. So don't enter like any of the comma and all those things. Simply you can put values like this. Okay. I can provide all these options. Then after we are having an options called display values alphabetically. That means whatever the order I have entered, if you don't want this order and then do you want display in alphabetically, you can enable this checkbox. And then the second option is use first value as default value. Use first value as default value. If you enable these options, right, then automatically what happen? Whenever you are trying to populate any of the value, by default option got populated. By default option got populated. So now if you consider these rating, right, what happened? By default none selected. That means nothing selected here. But if you're using a default option, right, then what happened? Whenever you are trying to create any of the record, by default, whatever the option you have specified, the corresponding option populating here. The corresponding option populating here. Do you want to specify any of the option? You can like simply use this option, use first value as default value. Okay. And then do you want to provide anything about this description, help text, then after required? So required instance already we specified, right? If you would like to make it required while creating a record, you can enable the checkbox. So once I am like done with these options, simply click on next. Do you want to add any other value? You can simply enter and then I enter other value. So if you're done, then simply click on next. So whatever the values we have specified, those values available in drop down. Now I'm like enabling all these options and then save. So now two fields got created. One is a department and another one is student name. Okay. So now I'm trying to create like one more field under the same object. I'm trying to create one more field under the same object. New. Maybe now I can go with the another type called email. So if I would like to create an email, then we are having an email format is there. I can choose this option, email type. Click on next. I need to specify field name, field label, and then field name. So then after, do you want to make it required or edit? You can enable these checkboxes. Otherwise, simply click on next. Click on next. So, and then click on save. If you would like to create any new fields, so navigate to your object and fields and relationships. So here you have a new option. Now I'm going to create date of birth. In the case of like date of birth, what we can do, we are having a date option. I'm going to choose this option. Click on next. I need to provide a label name, date of birth. And then simply I'm clicking on next. Clicking on save. So far we have created with these three fields. So now I would like to verify so whether our object is created or not, and then these fields available in our UI or not. For this purpose, what happened? I am like simply refreshing our screen. Okay. So with these students available. So now I'm like trying to create a record here. I'm trying to create one of the record here. One of the student is here. Simply I can select student. As of now, it's a newly created object, right? No records available here. So by default, it is empty. Now I'm trying to create one of the student detail as a record under this student object. So now simply click on new. So here, whatever the student name, department, email, date of birth, whatever the fields we have created, those all are available here. Now I'm like simply providing name and then a department, CSE. So whatever the options we have specified, right? All the options available here. So email ID, @gmail.com, and then date of birth. By default, date picker option is available. So whatever the date we want, we can select and then simply create record here. Simply create one of the record here. So by default, what happened? So the format is basically one of the record is created with CIG 000001 with these name. Whatever the format we have specified, by default, it is available. Now, if I create one more record, right, then automatically So these value will be incremented. No need to like create, no need to populate manually. By default, these values will be incremented. So now I'm going to create one more record for verification purpose. Maybe like I can go with Neil, and then I'm choosing a different branch, email, gmail.com, date of birth, and then clicking on save. Then automatically what happened? CAG 002. Like this, how many records we are going to create? It is going to increase the values. No need to populate manually. Do you want to provide your record count? Then you can simply give these auto number value. Okay. So now the values created, and if you see here, right, by default, if you're using an email format, by default that is available in email format. And then in the case of date of birth, by default it is displaying in date format. Okay, so if you go with the text value, how it is displaying? It is displaying plain text format. If you're using an email, it is displaying in email format, and then date, it is displaying in date format. That's why what type of data do you want to store? Based on our requirement, you can choose corresponding types. You can choose corresponding types. So far, anyone having any questions? Is it clear? Okay. So why we are like spending this much time in the sense, if you are able to understand these things, right, basic things, right, in our next classes, we can go through multiple things like, so as Satish mentioned, we are going to store different details, and then a different object, different customer details and all those things. For storing all those details, we need an objects and then all these data types. Okay, data types, and then requiredness. So what is required and what is unique? So some people may be like, if you got a requirement like you need to create a fields and you need to like make it required, or like you need to make it default options. For those kind of things, right, you should know each and every feature of these objects. That's why we are going in detail. Okay, so similar way, whatever the fields we are remaining fields we are having, based on our analysis, we can create appropriate fields like city, area, and then country. So zip code and all those things. So now we can go with one of the field country, that is global pick list. So how we can create these global pick list. So why we are using global pick list in the sense, so for example, like we are storing student address. So when we are trying to store student address, at the time we are using a field called country. Similar way, maybe like for teacher, and then for school, and then for other objects also, they may be having a field called country. They may be having field called country. So when we are using a drop down field, right, at the time what you need to, whenever you are trying to create a field, each and every time you need to enter the values. Each and every time you need to enter the values. So when I'm creating a student object, at the time I can enter the all the countries, whatever the like 60 countries or like 100 countries, whatever the country names, I'm going to enter. So similar way, when I'm creating a teacher object, at the time also for country field, I need to enter all the values. Maybe in another object, when I'm trying to create in a country field, at the time also, I'm going to enter all the values. So in order to enter these country values multiple places, what we can do, we are going to create one of the global pick list, and these global pick list we can use in all the objects. These global pick list we can use in all the objects. So for the purpose, what we can do, so after your login, clicking on setup, once you click on setup, we have an object manager and then home. So within these quick find, simply enter global pick list. Global pick list. Okay, pick list value sets. If we click on pick list value sets, then we will get an options. So here by default country is created. I'm going to create one more global pick list value, country 33, for our understanding purpose. Country 33, and then whatever the countries do you want to provide, you can like provide here. So whatever the countries do you want to provide, you can provide all the pick list options here. So then after, simply save these country 33 option. So now if I'm trying to create a field, in our student object, again I'm navigating to the object manager. Within this object manager, I need to create a country field within our student object. So for the student object, student 33, we are having a student 33. Within this student 33, I need to create a country field. So if you would like to create a field, after clicking on student object, navigate to the fields and relationships. Within the fields and relationships, we are having a new. Within new, what you need to do, you need to go with country option. If I'm trying to create in a country, then I need to choose in a pick list. I'm going to specify country, and then I would like to use a global pick list. When you are using these options, then by default, whatever the global pick list available, all the global pick list by default displaying here, I am going to choose country 23. Then automatically what happened, right? Whatever the options we have specified within these country 23, by default that is available as a drop down. So earlier what happened, when we are using a department field, at the time whatever the options is required, that we are going to simply entered while creating a field. So now what happened, I'm not entering any of the options. So I'm just referring whatever the options available within this global pick list. So similar way, when I'm creating country field in teacher object, at the time what happened, simply I'm referring these object name. So these global pick list name. And then it may be like a same country field if I'm using in another object, at the time what happened, right? Simply I'm referring these name. So no need to enter country names in each and every object. Simply you can provide global pick list name. And then, so remaining thing as usual, click on next. Click on next. Click on save. So now country field also added in our object. Now I'm trying to refresh our screen and then we'll see. So this country field is available in our student object or not. So country field by default, I'm trying to create a new student. One moment. Forget to enable in our fields. Yeah, now I'm trying to create a new record here within the student object. By default, that should be available here. Maybe sometimes it is taking some time to refresh. Yeah, but anyhow, that is going to display under these date of birth. So whatever the drop down, whatever the values we have provided within the country, that is going to display here. So similar way, whatever the fields do you wanna create, you can simply add all your fields. Then after you can create the tab, and then so do you wanna create any records? You can navigate to the corresponding tab name, and then you can create the records here. So now I'm into this screen. I'm into a setup screen, and I would like to navigate to the student tab. Then what we can do? We are having a 9 dot symbol available here. This we called as an app launcher. So we have a 9 dot symbol available here. We called as an app launcher. So if I click on this app launcher, right? So by default, we are having a search option. I'm going to enter our object name. I'm going to enter our so what is that? Our tab name. So once we click on this tab name, automatically it will navigate to the corresponding object here. Okay, if you like to create record in any of the tab, then simply click on app launcher and then enter your object name. So automatically it will navigate to the corresponding tab. So again, if you would like to go to the setup, you can simply click on setup option and then you can go to the object manager and then remaining options here. If you would like to modify your object and then if you would like to modify anything, you can simply navigate to the corresponding object manager and all those options here. Okay, so do you want to modify anything? You can click on setup and then you can go to the like these object manager and all these options. Otherwise, do you want to create any record? You can go to the app launcher. Within this app launcher, you can get all the details. Okay, whatever the objects available, everything you can switch it here, and then you can like navigate to the corresponding tab. So here, whatever the standard objects and then custom objects, each and every object tab available here. So you can simply select whatever the tab you want and then you can navigate to that. Okay. So this is the way generally we are going to create objects and then we can create the fields here. So just one moment. Any questions? Okay, so here we are having all the fields and remaining fields you can create from your end, gender and then date of birth, area, remaining fields you can create from your end. Okay, so now we go with one more small concept, and then we can drop for the day. So the concept is basically relationships. The concept is basically relationships. Okay, so now we have created the student object as well as class. So earlier we are having an account and then contact. So we have objects like this. So then how we are going to relate these two objects? How we are going to relate these two objects? So earlier what I mentioned, in our account, we are going to capture company details. In account object, we are going to capture company details. Okay, company details. And under this contact, we are going to capture person details. Who is working in this company? Okay, so now how we are going to relate these two objects? How we are going to relate these two objects? So if I would like to relate, right, then in Salesforce providing multiple options. So the relationships is basically, first one is one-to-many relationship. Then after one-to-one, and then many-to-many. Note down these options, these relationship names, many-to-many. So then after we are having hierarchy. Hierarchy relationship. So what is this one-to-many? What is this one-to-many? And what is this one-to-one? What is this many-to-many? What is this hierarchy? So here, right, these one-to-many in the sense, one-to-many in the sense, for example, in our company, multiple people may work. At least more than one person may work under our company. So our company name is something like ABC. Within this ABC, maybe like one person or like two persons or like three persons, more than one person may work within our company. So at the time, what happened, right? Under this ABC account, I would like to capture person 1 details as well as person 2 details and then person 3 details. So at the time, what happened? So under this one record, we are having multiple contacts. Under this one account, we are having multiple contacts. So Similar way, like one person may purchase multiple products. Maybe like a person one can purchase multiple products. Product one as well as product two, and then product three. Like this, one person may purchase multiple products. So these kind of data do you want to store? We can go with one to many relationship. One to many relationship. One parent account may contain more than one child records. More than one child records. So here what happened? Under these ABC company, like multiple people working, so we are going to capture all the person details under this account. So now I'm navigating to the one of the account. So you can see here under this United Oil and Gas Corporation, it is having multiple contacts. So contact one and then contact two. So under this single account record, two contact records created. So that means one to many. Under this one record, it is creating two contacts. So if you would like to create this kind of relationship, then we called as one to many. So under one parent record, we can create multiple records. We can create multiple child records. So these kind of relationship we called as one to many. In the case of like a one to one, in the sense, one parent record can contain only one child record. One parent record can contain only one child record. So here, what is parent and what is child, in the sense? Under the company is our parent, employees is under company. So employees is under company. So that's why the corresponding employee details we are capturing in contact, right? So contact is a child object, and then company is in a parent object. So that's why, so within these account and then contact, what we are going to refer? One to many relationship. Under the one account, we are capturing multiple contact details. So that's why we called as one to many. So now coming to one to one in the sense, one parent account can contain only one child account. One parent account can contain only one child account. Okay. So these kind of relationships may be like by default Salesforce not provided. With the help of customization, we will get these features. By default, Salesforce not provide these option. Okay, we can, with the help of customization, we can achieve these requirement. And then one to one, by default, Salesforce provide these option. Okay, so then after many to many. So for example, we go with our student and then teacher. Student and then teacher. Student and then teacher. So one student. So he may be like having multiple teachers. That means he may be having like one student may be attending classes from different teachers. Why? Because so each and every teacher, they are going to teach different subjects. So now one student can get the details from multiple teachers, like some computer and then different teachers. So they are going to like simply connect to the different teachers. So similar way, one teacher can share their knowledge to multiple students. So here one student can get the details from multiple teachers. Similar way, one teacher can communicate to the multiple students. So these kind of relationship we called as many to many relationship. So one student can communicate to the multiple, can get the details from the multiple teachers. Similar way, one teacher can get the details from, can communicate to the multiple students. So these kind of relationships we called as many to many. So we have like one more example, like employee and then resource. Employee and then resource. So one employee and then project. So one employee can work for project 1 and then project 2. Maybe like one employee 1 can work for project 1 and then project 2. Similar way, like one project may be like completed by multiple employees. So one project may be completed by multiple employees. So these kind of relationships, we simply called as many-to-many relationship. Many-to-many relationship. So these many-to-many relationship also by default Salesforce won't provide. We need to achieve with the help of customization. So now finally, hierarchy relationship. These hierarchy relationship is a self relationship. We call it self relationship. For example, like we are having a employee object. Within these employee object, what happened, right? So we are having a employee 1 and then employee 2, then after employee 3 and then employee 4. So now what happened, right? What is this hierarchy relationship in the sense? For example, employee 1 acting as a manager. And employee 2 and remaining all are like simply software engineers. Employee 2, employee 3. So simply they are working as a software engineers. So only employee 1 working as a manager. So now these people, they are going to report to their manager. For example, if they would like to go for any leave or like anything, what happened? They need an approval from the manager. At that time, what happened? So we have a field called manager. Within this employee object, we have a field called manager. So within this manager, right, we are going to populate one of the employee value. We are going to populate one of the record value. So here, this employee 1 is in a manager. So employee 1 is in a manager. So if you are like relating to the same object, then we simply called as hierarchy or self lookup. Okay. So these 4 kind of relationships that is available in Salesforce. So we are going to use these 4 relationships. So how we are going to create and then how to like build these relationships, we can discuss in our next class. But as of now, what you can do, just try to like understand what is one-to-many and then like one-to-one, many-to-many hierarchy relationship. Just try to understand this one. So any questions so far?
Can you explain the self lookup once again, please?
Sure. So self lookup is basically we go with one of the object student. Okay. Within the student, right? So I'm creating a record like this. I'm creating a records like this. The record value is basically like a name, student name, and then so within the this one, right? What happened? We are having a one field called leader name. Within the student, we are having a leader name, and then remaining details like a class and all those details is there. So now I'm going to populate details like this. So name is basically Srikanth, and then for this Srikanth later is Satish. Okay, and then class is 10th. Similar way, I am going to create like a one more record. So Satish, and then here, so for this Satish, again later is basically Satish. So then after, like he is also 10th class, and then few more like Anil, Satish, and then 10th class, 4, So Kant, Satish, and then 10 here. So here what happened? Already we are creating records Shrikant, Satish, Anil, and then Kant. Now the thing is we need to populate a ladder name. We need to populate ladder name. So if you would like to populate these ladder name, right? At that time, what happened? We need to refer one of the existing record of same object. We need to refer one of the existing record of same object. Now, Satish, we are like populating like these record. We are populating as a ladder of these remaining 3 records. Okay, so here what happened? It is not relating to the any other object. It is relating to the same object. It is relating to the same object. So these kind of relationships we called as self lookup or like hierarchy. If you're like trying to relate to the same object, then we called as self lookup. So in previous case, what happened? In the case of like account and contact, these two are two different objects. So we are going to create a relationship in between them. So in the case of like one-to-one also, that is like two different objects, we are like establishing a connection between two different objects. And then many-to-many also, we are going to establish a connection between two different objects, teacher and then student. Now coming to like a hierarchy, right? You are not establishing a relationship between any different objects. So you are like simply creating a relationship between your object to the again your object. So these kind of relationship we called as self lookup or hierarchy relationship. Is it clear? Any question from anyone?
So basically you are telling we have to refer to the same object, right?
Yes.
So in this case, it becomes two, like a leader name and a class also, right? Because class is also 10.
So class is in a common option. Okay. So here you can populate the values. But the thing is, these ladder. So ladder is basically like it is one of the record. How we are going to refer, I will explain. So the thing is, when you are creating a child record, right? You need to, for example, now I am creating one of the contact record. One of the contact record. So here what happened? Whenever you are trying to create a child record, you need to select your parent record. Okay, where do you want to create your child record? Under this, if I would like to create under this United Oil and Gas, right? So you can simply populate these value. Okay, but the thing is, so you go with some other option like a capital group. So here what happened? So it is in a user object. It is in a user object. So within this user, right, we are having in a manager field. We are having in a manager field. Who is our manager? So for this manager, right, again you are navigating to the same user object. So Shrikant Malipeti, so he's like one of the record in our user object. Now I'm referring same object record. So these kind of relationship. So but remaining fields like as you mentioned, right, 10th is just an option. We are not referring to the any other record. So now Satish, we are referring the second record. So remaining places, right, we are referring the second record value. Okay, 10th is just a value, but here it's a referring to the another. So Shrikant leader, who is Shrikant leader? And who is Anil leader? So if I would like to know Anil leader phone number, Anil leader phone number, Anil leader class name. So here we may be having like a one more field called phone number. 1, 2, 3. And then so 2, 3, 4. 3, 4, 5. 4, 5, 6. So now I would like to know Anil leader phone number. Then what we need to, so with the help of these relationship name, we can traverse to the Anil like a ladder, and then I can get the Anil ladder number. Okay, class is common, but if I would like to refer any of the your ladder details, then you can simply navigate with the help of these field value. Is it clear?
Thank you.
So we'll go one by one. So we will explain again these one-to-many, like all these relationship one more time. So how we can create and all those things. At the time, probably we can get like more details and then more insights. So how we are going to create and then how to use all these things. But as of now, just keep in mind like what type of relationships is there. So what is one-to-many and then one-to-one and then many-to-many hierarchy. So then after, like we can create these records. Okay. For today, what we can do, just create objects, okay, student and then a teacher, then after class. So these three objects. So with appropriate fields, whatever the fields do you want, you can like specify and then play with all the options here. Play with all the options here, whatever the data types available, right? So here we are having a checkbox and then currency, date, date time, email. You may be like exclude this geolocation and number, percentage. So remaining all the options. Okay. So just try to use all these options and then create a fields in your object and create some sample records as well. Is it clear? So create three different objects, student, then after teacher, and then class with appropriate fields.